Have you ever promised yourself you'd start waking up early, only to hit snooze 5 times the next morning? Or told yourself, this is the year I'm going to get in shape, start a business, or finally write that book, and then watched months slip by without progress? You're not alone. Daniel Walter, in his book The Power of Discipline, says something simple yet profound. Success doesn't come from motivation. It comes from discipline. Motivation is that spark we feel in the moment. But discipline? Discipline is the system, the structure, the habit that carries us forward when motivation fades. And here's the truth. Discipline isn't about punishing yourself. It's about freeing yourself from procrastination, from bad habits, from the constant cycle of starting and stopping. Today, we're diving deep into this book, not just as a summary, but as a journey. We'll walk through Walter's key lessons, his examples, and his strategies for building the kind of self-control that actually lasts. So grab a notebook or just sit back and imagine this conversation like a mentor sharing timeless lessons with you. Walter begins with a tough but honest truth. Most of us wait for motivation before we act. We think, once I feel ready, I'll start exercising. Once I'm inspired, I'll write that chapter. But the problem? Motivation is temporary. It's emotional. It rises and falls like the weather. Here's a story Walter shares. Thomas Edison, the famous inventor, created over 1,000 unsuccessful prototypes before finally inventing the light bulb. If Edison had relied only on motivation, he would have quit after the 50th failure, or maybe even earlier. What carried him wasn't excitement. It was discipline. Discipline means showing up consistently, no matter how you feel. It's about doing what you said you'd do, even when your mood screams otherwise. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't wake up excited about it. You don't need a motivational video to remind you. You just do it because you've disciplined yourself to see it as non-negotiable. Walter argues, if we can make success habits as automatic as brushing our teeth, the results in our lives will be extraordinary. Now, before we go deeper, let's define a word Walter uses a lot: willpower. Willpower is your ability to resist short-term temptations in order to achieve long-term goals. Think of it as a mental muscle. Just like your biceps get tired after too many curls, your willpower can get drained if you overuse it. Psychologist Roy Baumeister calls this ego depletion. Walter builds on this by showing how people who succeed don't necessarily have more willpower. They just use it wisely. Here's a fascinating example. In a famous experiment, two groups of people were brought into a room. One group sat next to freshly baked cookies but was told not to eat them. The other group didn't see the cookies at all. Later, both groups were asked to solve puzzles. Guess what? The group that had to resist cookies gave up much sooner. Why? Because resisting temptation had already drained their willpower. Walter's takeaway: don't rely on sheer willpower alone. Instead, design your environment to minimize temptation. If you're trying to eat healthier, don't keep junk food in your house. If you want to focus on writing, put your phone in another room. Discipline isn't about being superhuman. It's about being smart enough to protect your energy for what truly matters. If willpower is the spark, habits are the engine. Walter explains, every time you repeat a behavior, you carve a mental pathway in your brain. Think of it like walking through tall grass. The first time it's hard, but the more you walk that path, the clearer it becomes, until eventually it's the easiest route. This is why discipline is so closely tied to habits. He shares the story of Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian. Seinfeld's method for becoming a great writer wasn't waiting for inspiration. He used what's now called the don't break the chain method. He'd mark a big red X on his calendar every day he wrote jokes. Soon the chain of X's grew so long that he didn't want to break it. That's habit. That's discipline. Walter suggests starting small. If your goal is to read more, don't aim for an hour a day right away. Start with 5 minutes. Make it a daily ritual. The key isn't the size of the habit, but the consistency of it. Now let's talk about one of the biggest enemies of discipline: instant gratification. Instant gratification means choosing a small reward now instead of a bigger reward later. Like eating ice cream today instead of sticking to your diet for long-term health. Walter explains how our brains are wired for it. Thousands of years ago, if our ancestors found food, they ate it right away, because who knew if it'd be there tomorrow? But in today's world, that survival instinct backfires. Social media notifications, binge watching, junk food, all of it hijacks our brain's natural craving for immediate pleasure. Walter uses the famous marshmallow experiment to illustrate this. Children were given one marshmallow and told they could eat it now, or wait 15 minutes and get 2 marshmallows. The kids who waited, they grew up to have better grades, stronger careers, and even healthier relationships. Discipline is, in essence, the skill of delaying gratification, choosing the future you want most over the impulse you want now. So next time you face a choice, Walter suggests asking, will this action bring me closer to my goals, or just satisfy me in the moment? Walter makes it clear that discipline isn't just some abstract idea floating in self-help books. It's real, it's practical, and it shows up in the lives of people we admire most. Not because they're superhuman, but because they've built systems of discipline. Let's start with Warren Buffett. You've probably heard his name, the Oracle of Omaha, one of the richest and most successful investors in history. But here's the thing, Buffett isn't the fastest trader. He isn't glued to screens chasing every market movement. He's not flashy. His success doesn't come from bursts of motivation or luck. It comes from decades of discipline. Buffett lives by a few very simple investing rules, and he follows them almost religiously. For example, he only invests in businesses he understands. He avoids chasing trends or hyped up companies just because everyone else is. And most importantly, he's patient. He waits for the right opportunity, sometimes for years, before acting. Now think about how difficult that actually is. Imagine the market is booming, everyone around you is celebrating get-rich-quick gains, and your instincts are screaming, jump in now before it's too late. That's when discipline is hardest, and yet Buffett holds firm. He sticks to his principles, and that consistency has made him one of the wealthiest people alive. Walter uses this as a powerful lesson. Discipline is what protects us from impulsive decisions. In investing, in health, in relationships, it's the steady hand that keeps us from chasing every shiny distraction. Now let's move to another arena, sports. Take Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes in tennis history. When we see her lifting trophies on TV, it looks like talent. But Walter reminds us, behind every trophy are thousands of hours of practice. Hours when no cameras were rolling, days when she was sore, tired, maybe even unmotivated, but she still showed up. Think about it. How many times do you not feel like going to the gym or practicing a skill or working on your project? Probably more often than you'd like to admit. Serena had those days too. The difference? She didn't negotiate with herself. She trained anyway. That's discipline. And here's the key idea Walter drives home. Talent sets the stage, but discipline writes the play. Let's pause and unpack that. Talent is potential. It's the starting point. Maybe you're naturally good with numbers, or you write easily, or you pick up sports faster than others. But potential on its own is like a script idea that never gets written. It's just floating in your head. Discipline is what takes that raw talent and turns it into results. It's the actor who shows up to rehearsal every day, memorizes the lines, studies the craft, and actually performs. Without discipline, talent fizzles out. With discipline, even average talent can produce extraordinary results. Walter shares case studies of ordinary people who achieved remarkable outcomes through consistent discipline. For example, he describes entrepreneurs who didn't launch billion-dollar companies overnight. Instead, they built habits, saving a small percentage every month, making one more call each day, reviewing their progress every week. Over years, that quiet discipline snowballed into massive success. And maybe you've seen this in your own life too. Think about a time you stuck with something long enough, maybe learning an instrument, studying for an exam, or saving for a goal. At first, it didn't look like much, but after months of steady action, you realized you were miles ahead of where you began. That's the power of discipline in action. Walter's message is simple but profound. Discipline is the great equalizer. Not everyone has the same starting talent, resources, or circumstances, but anyone can choose discipline. And over time, discipline almost always outperforms raw talent. So if you ever feel like you're not the smartest, the strongest, or the most gifted in the room, remember this. You don't need to be. The person who wins in the long run is usually not the most talented. It's the one who keeps showing up day after day, especially when it's hard. Here's where Walter challenges a popular idea. We've all been told, set goals, lose 20 pounds, earn $100,000, write a book. But Walter says goals can actually trap you. Why? Because they're focused on outcomes, not processes. Instead, he encourages us to build systems. A system is the daily process that makes the goal inevitable. Don't focus on losing 20 pounds. Focus on exercising 30 minutes a day and eating balanced meals. Don't focus on writing a book. Focus on writing 500 words each morning before work. Systems are discipline in motion. They make success automatic. So why go through all this effort? Why fight impulses, build habits, and set systems? Walter's answer, because discipline gives you freedom. Think about it. Financial discipline leads to financial freedom. Health discipline leads to physical freedom. Work discipline leads to career freedom. One of Walter's most powerful lines is this: discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. It's not about restriction. It's about unlocking the life you truly want by making consistent choices in that direction. So what's the real gift of the power of discipline? It's realizing that success isn't reserved for the most talented, the smartest, or the luckiest. It's reserved for those who can train themselves to show up day after day, choice after choice. Every decision is a vote for the person you want to become. Each time you resist procrastination, delay gratification, or stick to your habit, you're casting a vote for your future self. And here's the most empowering part. You don't need to transform overnight. You just need to start with one discipline act today. Maybe that's turning off your phone for 30 minutes to focus. Maybe it's going for a quick walk instead instead of scrolling. Maybe it's writing a single paragraph toward your book. Discipline isn't built in giant leaps. It's built brick by brick. So let me leave you with this. The next time you face the choice between what's easy and what's right, which version of yourself will you vote for? If this video gave you something to think about, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more book summaries, and share it with someone who might need a little more discipline in their journey. Because at the end of the day, motivation may start the journey, but discipline finishes it.